Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to give my review of AEW's Dynamite. Starting off the evening, we go to our first match of the night. It is a tag team matchup. It is Will Ospreay teaming up with Orange Cassidy versus Roderick Strong and Trent Beretta. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams with Ospreay and Roderick Strong exchanging in the middle of the ring. Strong and Beretta were trying to keep the pace of the match. Undisputed Kingdom attack Orange Cassidy ringside. Trent then hits a half and half on Ospreay. Strong then hits multiple forearm strikes on Ospreay. Cassidy then hits a diving DDT off the top rope. Strong then goes for an end of Heartache, but Don Callis saves Orange Cassidy. Wardlow comes down to the ring. He attacks Ospreay, which allows Roderick Strong to hit the end of Heartache on Orange Cassidy, pins him for the 3, and your winners of the match are Roderick Strong and Trent Beretta. After the match, Undisputed Kingdom end up attacking Will Ospreay, and it looks like Strong was sending a message to Ospreay for their match at Double or Nothing. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. Well, the next segment of the night is the Bullet Club Gold segment. Jay White hypes up the Bullet Club. He pretty much mocks Pac. Pac then is shown on the Titantron. Some fans were questioning who wrote this, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Pac then brings back the Death Triangle. Pac and Penta and Phoenix all show up. They come down to the ring. They attack Bullet Club Gold. And it looks like we're going to get Death Triangle versus Bullet Club Gold at Double or Nothing. Possibly for the AEW Trios Championships at Double or Nothing. So, again, cross your fingers for that. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's a number one contendership match pretty much for the FTW Championship. It is Hook versus Brian Keith versus Shibata. I thought it was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Hook, Keith, and Shibata, with Hook keeping the pace of the match. Shibata then applies a figure 4 leg lock on Brian Keith. Hook then gets involved by applying a red rum on Brian Keith. Keith taps out, and your winners of the match are Shibata and Hook. After the match, Chris Jericho announced because both Shibata and Hook won, that Jericho will be defending the FTW Championship against Shibata and Hook at Double or Nothing. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Takeshita versus Matt Sydal. I thought it was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between Takeshita and Sydal, with Takeshita keeping the pace throughout the match. Takeshita then hits a Blue Thunder Bomb on Sydal in the middle of the ring, with Takeshita ultimately hitting the finish on Sydal. Pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Takeshita. After the match, Takeshita attacks Sydal. Moxley comes down to the ring. He ends up attacking Takeshita, pretty much sending a message to Takeshita for their match. It's going to happen at Double or Nothing. And from what I understand, the IWGP Championship is not on the line for the matchup between Moxley and Takeshita at Double or Nothing. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Nick Wayne versus Swerve. I thought it was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between Wayne and Swerve, with Swerve keeping the pace of the match. Swerve then hits a Swerve stop off the apron to the outside on Nick Wayne. Wayne then gets involved, hits a rolling code red on Swerve. But Swerve ultimately hits the finish, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Swerve. After the match, Killswitch comes down to the ring, attacks Swerve. Christian then tries to leave the arena by a car in the parking lot. He is stopped by Prince Nana, which we haven't seen Prince Nana in quite a while. He ends up stopping Christian from leaving the parking lot, and Swerve and Christian both fight in the parking lot. Again, pretty much Swerve sending a message to Christian for their match at Double or Nothing. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night, probably the most exciting part of the night. It is Kyle O'Reilly versus Malachi Black. I thought it was a decent match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between O'Reilly and Malachi Black. O'Reilly and Malachi both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Malachi keeping the pace of the match. O'Reilly then applies an ankle lock, but the hold is broken. Malachi quickly hits a fade to black on O'Reilly, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Malachi Black. After the match, the lights go out, and then the Titantron and the LED screens around the ring started lighting up black and red. And all of a sudden, Malachi looks up, and he is covered in blood. And you see Adam Copeland on the Titantron, pretty much making sure that Malachi is ready for the match at Double or Nothing. Again, we haven't seen Adam Copeland do anything like this since his days in WWE, his early days in WWE, when he was teaming up with Christian and Gangrel when he was in The Brood, which again was a great stable in WWE. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a tag team matchup. It is Saraya teaming up with Harley Cameron versus Mariah May and Toni Storm. I thought it was a decent match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between both teams, with Saraya and Toni Storm both exchanging in the middle of the ring. Mariah May and Toni Storm were keeping the pace of the match, with Toni Storm hitting a Storm Zero on Saraya. Mariah May then hits a Mayday on Cameron, and then Storm hits a Storm Zero on Harley Cameron, pins her for the 3, and your winners of the match are Mariah May and Toni Storm. After the match, Serena Deeb comes down to the ring to attack Toni Storm. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of Dynamite. It is Bryan Danielson versus Satnam Singh. I thought it was an okay match at best. Back and forth matchup between Danielson and Singh, with Danielson keeping the pace of the match. Danielson then hits a low blow on Singh, followed up by a running knee. Danielson then lands multiple yes kicks on Satnam Singh. Danielson then applies a label lock. Jarrett then attacks Danielson. Matt and Nick Jackson come down to the ring. They attack Bryan Danielson. Okada is here. He tries to cause a distraction. Jack Perry then attacks Bryan Danielson from behind. Tony Khan then is shown dropping off Darby Allin. Darby Allin's holding a flamethrower. Darby Allin comes down to the ring. He's on the ramp. And Darby helps save Bryan Danielson. Couple of things I want to talk about, man, especially when it pertains to Dynamite. Number one, this probably wasn't the best review. I ain't going to lie to y'all. And if I'm going to keep it a stack, I thought last night's Dynamite was awful. I thought the show, besides maybe the Adam Copeland segment, if you will, after the match between Malachi Black and Kyle O'Reilly, other than that, the match, the AEW card last night was awful. It was awful. It was a dumpster fire. And I'm not the only one that's saying that. I don't understand what AEW is trying to do. Now, I covered AEW. You guys know that by now, for y'all that are watching, the podcast, which I do appreciate it. I do cover AEW, and I really do appreciate what AEW has done. It's not tribalism. I know some people are saying, well, you can't say tribalism if you're only covering one company. The reason why I cover AEW, because it fits in my personal schedule with what I do. And I enjoy covering wrestling and everything else, but again, everybody has a personal life. So, and again, I never said that I would never cover Raw and SmackDown, just haven't gotten around to it yet and trying to figure it into the schedule. But with that being said, we're talking about Dynamite. So, my thought process of Dynamite last night, especially when it pertains to it being a go-home show, I thought it was trash, man. I thought the show was lackluster, and there's a couple of pinpoints of why I thought it was lackluster. Number one, Swerve. I have all the respect in the world for Swerve. I think Swerve, is one of those talents on the roster that's severely underrated. And I'm glad he's finally became world champion, because it's rightfully deserved. The guy has put the work in. He's busted his ass since he's been on the roster. He's put on phenomenal matches. Those matches he had with Adam Page are phenomenal matches. That match he had with Page at Full Gear, I believe last year, was phenomenal. So Swerve has put the time and energy and effort in to be a main event caliber talent, which he already is, and become a world champion for AEW, which he currently is. But with that being said, we do not need to see Swerve every single night on Dynamite. You even hear Tony Schiavone on commentary last night saying that I don't understand why we keep seeing Swerve so much in a Dynamite ring right now when he's already a champion. He's already got a storyline built with Christian Cage. Now, I enjoy what happened after the match with, Prince Nana coming back after being gone for some time and helping Swerve with the attacks from Christian. That was great. And he told a great story, and the storyline leading up to Double or Nothing between Christian and Swerve is going to be good. But Swerve did not need to be in a match with Nick Wayne. Swerve could have just, figured out what happened last week, used that momentum to go into Double or Nothing and just destroy Christian Cage. Now, I'll say this off the rip. If Swerve goes in to Double or Nothing with that championship and somehow he does not walk out with that belt, AEW screwed up. Big time. Big time. Cage does not need to win this belt. Swerve needs to walk out Double or Nothing as the AEW World Champion. Christian Cage does not need to be AEW World Champion. No. And I'm not taking anything away from Christian Cage. I think Christian Cage, number one, is probably one of the best heels in AEW. Number one. And number two, he's a better heel than he is a babyface. Hands down. But he does not need that AEW World Championship. The other thing that I want to talk about is Bryan Danielson versus Satnam Singh. I don't understand, or I can't even gather the thought process of understanding how in the hell they booked Bryan Danielson versus Satnam Singh. Satnam Singh and that whole Jarrett project is a dead issue. It's not needed. And I stated this from the jump. Out of all the people that are surrounding themselves with Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal needs to get the hell away from Jeff Jarrett. I have a lot of praise for Jay Lethal. He's done a lot of great things, obviously, in Ring of Honor. He made a great name for himself over in Ring of Honor, as well as TNA. He needs to get the hell away from Jarrett. Jarrett is an anchor. Jarrett is a sinking ship that's going nowhere and nowhere fast. Satnam Singh, I said this at the beginning about Satnam Singh. I'm not trying to ride the coattails of other wrestlers, but bringing in a guy like that how tall he is, the dynamic of who he is, the structure of the guy, and how, he's 7'3" or 7'4". He's a big guy. I would bring him in, or I would have brought him in like a Giant Gonzalez, or brought him in like an El Gigante from WCW. This indestructible force. And right now, to me, Satnam Singh is not giving me that indestructible vibe. And I think they dropped the ball severely with Satnam Singh. I think Satnam Singh could have been a Great Khali or a Giant Gonzalez or an El Gigante. It could have happened for Satnam Singh, but it's just not there. And I just think, whoever booked this main event, I don't know if it was Bryan Danielson himself that said, yeah, I want to wrestle Satnam Singh. I have no idea why. But it made no sense. The other thing is, speaking of that match, was, it was great to see Darby Allin. It was great to see Tony Khan showing up in the arena, showing up in the parking lot, lifting the band for Darby Allin, and dropping Darby Allin off like he just came home from school, and dropping him off in the arena. But I will say this, with this storyline with the Elite and Team AEW, or I should say the Elite and Tony Khan, the biggest thing after Double or Nothing is that you had to ask yourself, even as a fan, is, let's say the Elite lose at Double or Nothing. Okay. Where's the storyline go from there? It's the same thing if the Elite win, which I am picking the Elite to beat Team AEW, but at the end of the day, what do you do next after this? Blood and guts? My thing is, would be something where if I was Tony Khan in AEW and, obviously the Young Bucks, this will be a conversation where maybe this is something where Tony Khan and the Young Bucks, it's, having all of them under the same roof might not be ideal. Those two egos can't be in the same room. So maybe what I would do to finish the storyline is I would have, obviously Matt and Nick Jackson running Collision, and then Tony Khan running Dynamite, and then splitting the rosters and doing a draft. That's what they need. I've stated that from the day Collision even came around. They need to split the rosters to get people invested in Collision. The other thing too, and I'm not a big TV ratings guy, and I mentioned this to you guys multiple times, I don't really give a shit about the ratings. I really don't. But I'll say this. Obviously, their TV deal's coming up soon, or they're in contract talks with Time Warner and TNT and TBS. I get that. And those contract talks, from what I understand, are going to run out through the summer. Okay. But my thing is, obviously, the NBA and stuff like that, they're leaving TNT and they're going over, I believe, NBC Universal. So a lot of people are like, oh, Tony Khan's going to get a lot of money. That might not happen. So releases also might happen within AEW as well, because if they're looking at it from a rating standpoint, from Rampage to Dynamite to Collision, it's just not working. And I'm telling you right now, the ratings last night's show had to have been shit, because they hardly even had a crowd last night. So my thing is, and if I go back in time, I remember when QT Marshall was leaving the company, and he said that one of the reasons why he was leaving the time of the company is because AEW was going in another direction, and it was more of an All Japan Pro Wrestling Noah based, where there's not a lot of storyline, it's just in-your-face action, which a lot of fans don't like that, because there's no storyline, there's no build around these matches, and I'm one of those fans where you need story. You need to tell me why this match is happening, where, the what, when, and where, and how, and let's get us here, and get us to the final destination. The final destination should be the pay-per-view. And that's what AEW needs to go back to. I understand AEW celebrating their 5-year anniversary at Double or Nothing. Great. The first 2 years, 2.5 years for AEW was fantastic. I'm not understanding why we can't get back to that. And that's what AEW needs to desperately go back to. Because I'm going to keep it a stack, man. I don't think AEW at this juncture is the alternative at this point. I don't think that is. I think the alternative right now is WWE. Because of the shit that they're doing. I mean, it was just announced literally today that SummerSlam in 2026 will now go on from one night to 2 nights. So it'll be August 1st and August 2nd in 2026. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. In Minneapolis, Minnesota. So, WWE and what Triple H and what Paul Levesque is doing over at WWE, they're making humongous moves right now, where Tony Khan and AEW are taking a massive back seat. I know Tony Khan had mentioned, he's got some surprises and some good things lined up for Double or Nothing. Yeah, but I hope you do, because you need something. I know AEW went out and got the and signed Camille, former NWA Women's World Champion, a great talent, and she signed with AEW. Well, I would bring in Camille at Double or Nothing, whether it's announcing her signing with AEW or having her in the crowd and have the camera pan over to Camille as the newest AEW signee. Or what about, Motor City Machine Guns? I know they were in contract talks with AEW. What's going on with that? So my thing is, at this point, AEW needs to hit a switch, and I thought they were going to do that last year, and I feel like they're countless taking steps back, and it's showing. And last night's show was just awful, man. It's one of the worst go home shows I've ever seen leading up to a pay-per-view. The other thing that I want to talk about too is what Tony Khan announced previous this week, that All In and All Out, there is going to be, I think, a week separation or a week and a half separation between those pay-per-views, because last year it was just a week. It was Sunday to literally Sunday. So I think we get like a week and a half separation from All In to All Out. I think All In's August 26th and All Out's September 7th. So I think roughly maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, which will be a big deal. I think it's definitely something that AEW needed to do. I think it was way too much back-to-back like that, and there was no build, there was no oomph to the pay-per-view. And I think it really did hurt All Out, because All In is their biggest show of the year. And once again, this year, it will be at Wembley Stadium. So that's the other thing, too, man. People need to stay healthy. Kenny Omega, he came back, but he's going to get, I don't know if he's getting surgery or what, but, MJF's hurt. Darby Allin's not even 100%. Julia Hart's hurt. There's a lot of, Adam Cole has been out for a couple months now. Well, a few months. So, I mean, at this point, the injuries are really crippling AEW. Eddie Kingston, he's out probably for a year and a half with what he had, or what he's got, torn meniscus and stuff like that, and ACL. So you're not going to see him probably for almost about a year. So, I mean, it's Britt Baker's out as well, Jamie Hayter. It's hurting the company. It really is. And, even like last night, Chris Jericho, I mentioned this multiple times in the past too. Jericho, I believe in his career right now, he's at a crossroads, to be honest with you. In a crossroads to a point where either he needs to change some shit up and reinvent himself once again, or he needs to retire and call it a day. There's nothing else more for Jericho to do. The character that he's doing now, this learning tree shit, it does not work, man. It is absolutely cringy. And it just doesn't work. And I feel like he's trying to do his best to get over again. It's not there. There's nothing else left more for Jericho to do in AEW. Yeah, he wants to put over younger talent like he wanted to put over Hook, but with all due respect, I feel like even at that time, Hook was, in my opinion, Hook was a little bit more over than Jericho at the time. To a point where Hook pretty much almost already established himself well before he even had a match with Jericho. So, and he was a current FTW champion, and Jericho wasn't doing shit. So, I feel like, I understand him trying to help the younger talent, but I feel like the younger talent are really helping him by staying relevant. Because Jericho is it's not there. And honestly, for what it's worth, besides Hook carrying an FTW championship, that FTW championship means absolutely shit. It doesn't mean anything. It's like the WWE 24/7 championship all over again. The title means nothing. It's irrelevant, and it's not needed. It's not. And I think AEW last night, they need to take a page out of that book that happened last night and do something different. Because it hurts Double or Nothing. And don't get me wrong, am I excited for Double or Nothing? Yes. But I'm excited from my own accord. This wasn't something where, AEW got me locked in and ready to go, and I'm all the storylines are leading me into Double or Nothing, and I'm so damn excited. No, this is just my sole excitement because 9 times out of 10, Tony Khan is Mr. Pay-Per-View, and he puts on phenomenal matches and phenomenal moments. That's what I'm excited for. And there is matches on Double or Nothing that I'm excited for. Anarchy in the Arena, yeah, I'm excited for it to see what happens and how they play it out. I'm excited for Ospreay, Roderick Strong. I'm excited for Willow and Mercedes Moné finally getting in the ring and finally stepping between the ropes and actually wrestling. Yeah, it's going to be a great night. Jon Moxley versus Takeshita, great matchup. But the stories haven't got me invested in Double or Nothing. My own personal preference on Double or Nothing is the reason why I'm excited for it, because of what they bring to the table in the matches that are currently on the card. Malachi Black versus Adam Copeland in a barbed wire steel cage match. Yeah, I'm excited for it, especially after what we saw with Copeland do last night. It was the best part of Dynamite last night. Are we going to get the old school Adam Copeland from the Brood? Are we going to also see an appearance possibly from Gangrel this Sunday at Double or Nothing? There's a lot of stuff that are starting to, it's for Copeland, it's starting to say, okay, maybe he's going to turn heel. Especially with all this Malachi Black stuff, yeah. But who knows? You know what I mean? It would be awesome to see Gangrel. To see Gangrel at Double or Nothing, it'd be great. Now, I don't think they can have, obviously, the same music for what they use with the Brood, but, I mean, if he... my thing is, if Tony Khan got the likeness rights from Adam Copeland's Ode song when he was on when he first did his singles run on Raw, yeah, if they can get the likeness rights of that song and mix it up with kind of like the Brood, yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for it. So I'm excited for that match too because the storyline's there. And to see what Copeland did with Malachi Black last night, it was the best thing on Dynamite all night last night. So, I don't know, man. I just think at this point, long story short, did the storylines get me excited leading up to Double or Nothing? No. No. And I'm not the only one saying that. It's not me saying, oh, AEW's shit and AEW's not worth it. No. But I told y'all in the very beginning, if it's shit, I'm going to tell y'all it's shit. And if it's good, I'm going to tell you it's good. And last night was dog shit. The show sucked. The show was awful. I don't know what Tony Khan's going to be doing here once after Double or Nothing happens. If the Elite walk out in Anarchy Arena, okay, where's the storyline go? You know what I mean? Technically, you can't fire the Bucks because it's ironclad in their contract. So what do you do with them? That's the biggest thing. Everybody wants to know what's going to happen next with this storyline. And like I said, with injuries and stuff, it's really hindering AEW. One of the biggest names that nobody really talks about is MJF. MJF is sorely missed and deeply missed in AEW. Oh my God. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that struck iron when the iron was hot, and because he got injured with his back and his neck and his shoulder, he's off the scene. You know what I mean? Now he has to get surgery. But he was carrying AEW on his back, and it showed. The ratings were better, the matches were better, the storyline with him and Undisputed Kingdom were better. The person in the Devil's Mask, it was one of the best storylines AEW had at that time. Because a lot of people didn't know who the hell this person was with wearing the Devil's Mask. My personal opinion was correct, and it was Adam Cole. But, again, Undisputed Kingdom is also hurting because there is no Adam Cole, because he's injured. So that stable is taking a beating because of it. There's no direction, there's no storyline with the Undisputed Kingdom. So it's hurting right now. That's the problem. Tony Khan puts a lot of investment in one superstar, and if that person gets injured, everything goes to shit. And it's showing. I got all the respect in the world for Darby Allin, but having Darby showed up last night and having Tony Khan drop his ass off in the back of the arena, and, okay, well, we're going to have you walk in with a damn flamethrower like he's some playable character from the video game Doom. I mean, what the hell are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? And then Tony Khan, is supposed to, be injured and all. It just, I don't know, man. I just feel like it's far-fetched, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this. And if you guys watch me from the very beginning, you guys know that I was a WCW fan growing up. And I love WWE as well. I do. The matches that, obviously, I was one of my favorite WrestleManias of all time till this day, which, I mean, credit, it's kind of a close tie between this year's WrestleMania and WrestleMania 10. WrestleMania this year was, incredible. That main event was awesome. But before that WrestleMania 10 was my favorite WrestleMania, and still up there till this day. It's a tie between WrestleMania that happened this year and WrestleMania 10. But, it's just, AEW needs to get back to what they know and what brought them to the dance. And if you want to change the world, this ain't a way of doing it, man. Really. And it's starting to show. Obviously, like I said earlier, contract talks between TBS and Time Warner and TNT with AEW. I know, from what I understand and what I've read, that, with these new contract talks, HBO Max is definitely going to be a part of these contract talks as a part of a streaming deal. And honestly, this is something that I've stressed with you guys for many, many months, that Tony Khan and AEW need to have a streaming deal. And Time Warner, from what I understand, own HBO Max, so why are we not? That needs to be addressed. They have the catalog, man. They've been around now for, come Sunday, 5 years. They have Ring of Honor. Now, I don't think they'll put Ring of Honor on HBO Max due to the Ring of Honor app that's already out there, but they have they have 5 years of pay-per-views for AEW. Old Dynamites. You can put different coverage on HBO Max and behind-the-scenes stuff. It can happen. So I think, hopefully, AEW does do some work with HBO Max and vice versa, because I think it's something that the fans desperately need, including myself. Rather than putting the pay-per-views on BR Live or something like that, you can put the pay-per-views on HBO Max and bring a lot more, fans to HBO and vice versa. And I think it's a win-win for AEW and HBO Max. But like I told you guys earlier, man, to me, last night, go-home show was not it. It was probably one of the worst go-home shows in AEW history leading up to a pay-per-view, in my honest opinion. But I'm also still excited for Double or Nothing this Sunday. I will be tuning in on Sunday. I will have a review for you guys either Monday or Tuesday, depending on what's going on. I know some of y'all are like, well, what happened last week? Well, dealing with a lot of family stuff last week. I had some electrical difficulties, and that was the other reason why I couldn't upload to you the episode last week for you guys. So I do apologize for that. If you guys are wondering about last week's episode, the reason why it's not out is because I was having a lot of electrical difficulties, and I was dealing with a lot of family stuff at the time, and my grandmother wasn't really doing too well, and she was in the hospital. So it's just those past few days, that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday last week was just brutal, man, brutal, and I just needed some R&R to kind of figure some stuff out and everything else, and it was just a hectic couple days and trying to figure everything out. So I do apologize for that. If you guys were looking forward to the episode, I am deeply sorry about that. I just had a lot of shit going on with electrical issues and family issues, and family stuff kind of in my book comes first. And again, my grandmother was in the hospital and stuff like that, so everybody was kind of worried and frantic and figuring out what the hell was going on. So but like I told you guys earlier, man, I will be covering Double or Nothing on Sunday. Get my the news, notes, rumors, doing the full review. The review should be out Monday. If not Monday, it will definitely 100% be out on Tuesday, probably around 3:30. That's going to be my standard time of releasing the content. If you guys are trying to figure out what time I release videos, with Dynamite, I usually upload it Thursday around 3:30. Today it's a little bit early just because I got other stuff going on today. But usually like 3:30 is when the videos go out. So, like I said, man, if you guys enjoyed Dynamite last night, that's great. God bless. But to me, in my honest opinion, I think the show last night was awful. I think Tony Khan and AEW need to hit the reset button now. And like I said earlier, the best thing of last night's show was a possible return, if you will, of the Brood, Adam Copeland, leading up to Double or Nothing with the matchup between himself and Malachi Black in the barbed wire steel cage match. So I'm definitely excited for that. And maybe we might get a return of Gangrel, possibly at Double or Nothing as well. But with that being said, this is my review of AEW's Dynamite. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember,